Thank you all for joining us today for overcoming the challenges of adopting technologies in the workplace. This is the keynote kickoff for the ALLStar series on how to become an all-star with various technologies. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how to adopt the technologies as our starter. One of the things we're going to be doing during the course of this series is to help you through the process of using various technologies. Web meetings is one of them. And today I chose to use a Zoom format, and specifically we're using Zoom meetings format. You can all see each other on here. Throw something in the chat just to make sure that you can hear me. Thank you all for responding to that. I don't have a moderator, but we'll probably use some artificial intelligence on it in order to, let's see if we can get rid of some of those doorbell knocks or some of the other things that we can do using the technologies that we are going to be talking about over the next couple weeks as we go forward. So I think at this particular point, we're going to start to ignore all those doorbells and get right into what we're going to be talking about today, which is those challenges that we face, both as leaders of teams and as individuals within organizations, that are related to technologies that we want, technologies that other people want us to use, and technologies that are thrust upon us, which if you take, we're going to be talking a lot about artificial intelligence, AI, when we go through this. And one of the things you've got to think about when you're thinking about technologies like artificial intelligence is that for some of us, it is being thrust upon us. Some of us probably are going to be dragging their feet, kicking and screaming, trying not to use it if they don't have to, or rather trying not to learn how to use it and spend the time to do that. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that today as well. But if you think about it, a lot of the other items that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks as we go through this ALLStar series, such as Microsoft Office, or perhaps Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or one of the other types of technologies that we will be talking about, at some point, we were probably all presented with that and said, hey, I think you ought to use this. Or you may have gone and said, hey, this looks like a good opportunity. I am going to go use it. So what's happening with us with artificial intelligence these days is not new, but it's fast and it's different. And for some of us, it's a little bit scary. For others of us, it's really a cool opportunity. And I think as we go through the series, you will get the sense that it should be both of those things for all of us. So at any rate, let's continue on forward and talk about overcoming the challenges that we face on a broad level. One of my favorite quotes on this topic comes from a gentleman by the name of Stuart Brand. Stuart was an editor of the Whole Earth catalog. And you see what he said here: once a new technology rolls over you, if you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road. Some of you think about steamroller with Elvis Presley or perhaps James Taylor, but this is really, I think, a very descriptive type of topic or type of quote for what we're talking about today, because it seems like artificial intelligence is coming in like a steamroller, as it seemed like the internet was coming in like a steamroller, as perhaps for some of you, cell phones came in. I remember when the internet was young and we had all these statistics to say radio took this amount of time in order to adopt, and then TV took this amount of time, and now it's the internet and everything was shorter. And as we kept going forward, that cell phones and then social networks, all of those adoption curves got shorter as time went on. And with artificial intelligence, one of the interesting things about it is it's taking advantage of the adoption of all those others in order to go faster than all of those others again. And that is both, as I said, an opportunity and maybe something to be a little bit timid about. Maybe. The key is to be ready for it. So today, in this keynote, we're going to be talking about a couple things. We're going to spend a good portion of the time to talk about the adoption challenge. Yes, we're going to cover all of those things that you saw in the descriptions. They're going to be under these 4 categories. But there is a challenge to adoption. It's not a new challenge. We've had it since day one. And frankly, it's not just a technology adoption challenge. It's almost every part of your life has got some sort of decision process related to, am I going to change my techniques? Am I going to adopt this tool? Am I going to take advantage of what's being put in front of me? And we're going to talk about that specific to the type of challenge that we're facing here today, which is a fast-moving technology challenge, which also is signified by tools that are already in use that we do really well with, most of us, or we think we do really well with, at least. They're ubiquitous. They're all over the place. We use them every day. A little bit later, I'll come up with this, and let me tell it to you now. Learned a stat recently that for those who downloaded and use Google Chrome, it's now the leading browser in the world, are now using it 6 hours plus every day. And you think about that, and that's really occupying a good portion of our life. So it's there, it's ubiquitous, but that's not the most ubiquitous tools. There are others that are even more ubiquitous, whether it's your cell phone or whether it's something else. It might be pencil and paper. A lot of us are still using pencil and paper for a lot of things. I find it interesting that the curve or the breadth of what people are adopting and the rate at which they're doing is still so all over the place. We are now, 30 plus years into the personal computer. We are 25 years into the internet. We are 10 plus years into cell phones. And it's still hard for some of us to adopt. I want to go from the iPhone 15 to the iPhone 17, or I want to upgrade the software. Oh no, there's another Windows update. You get the idea. There's a bunch of change that happens with this, which comes along with the territory. So we'll spend some time talking about that. We will talk about the upcoming confirmed ALLStar series. We think that's a big empowerment technique that most of you in this room today will be able to use, and which also will be hopefully good for your entire organizations. And we'll talk to you about how we can do that too. And we'll talk a little bit about what go forward strategies could look like based upon this whole set of topics put together. Before we go forward, though, I would like to thank our sponsors. They have helped us underwrite this, make this happen. They're also helping us get the word out to their constituencies. We have Digital Bridge, which some of you are probably familiar with the concept of Build Back Better. It's a federal initiative in order to be able to do infrastructure and certain technologies and to be able to upskill them. And we thank Digital Bridge for being part of this with us and helping us with the series. We thank Cloud Adoption Solutions. We work very, very closely with them, and the CEO of Cloud Adoptions is going to be part of this series as a mentor. We'll talk about her in a little bit. And Catalyst Connection, which in Western Pennsylvania, which is where I'm broadcasting to you from, they are what we call an MEP. They are a state-funded and federally funded organization, nonprofit, that helps manufacturers do better at what they do and be more competitive. And they've been very helpful with us. So you'll see some manufacturing types of topics in this series as we go. And always thank you to Salesforce. We're an ISV partner of Salesforce, and to Microsoft for their help and their partnerships. Thanks to you all, by the way, also for coming, because without you being here, I would have nothing to do today. Anyway, I hope that this is going to be great for all of us. Let's start, if you will, with one of our expert mentors, an overview from Dionne Mejer, who's the CEO in Inside Sales by Design, and she runs an organization who does help train, and they also do fractional CMO work, and they do HR work. But I think you're going to find that she's a very process-oriented type of person and is going to be a good resource for you as we go through the series. But let's start with a little quoting from her.
What is our strategy by which we bought this wonderful technology? What's our strategy to think about deploying it? What does that look like? We're going to come up with an execution plan, and we're going to reverse engineer. We always start with the end in mind. So what does successful adoption look like? Spoiler alert, it's probably not what you think it is, number one. And number two, it's going to be iterative. What is a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and buckle up because it's going to take longer than 30 days. So when we think about change, we're again entering a change management cycle when we are changing things our team is doing and using.
I didn't really tell you what she was going to talk about, but she is taking the whole idea of adopting technology and layering it on top of a change adoption cycle, number one. Number two is she's putting together a methodology for it to work. She's showing you that it's iterative and that it's necessary to be able to do the types of planning that will make it successful. When she did this presentation, it was to a group of leaders, I believe. And as a leader, I totally identify with it. And having tried to do adoption of various technologies and of various processes and techniques with a number of our clients in the past, I have found that leaders will accept that kind of methodology really, really well. But one of the challenges we have is, even though the leaders accept it conceptually, they don't always put their money where their mouth is. That is, they will not always go through the plan that Dionne just outlined. Most of the time, it's because they don't think they have the time or because there's some other types of pressing issues. But that's the kind of pressure that we get as leaders when we're trying to implement technologies and when we're trying to go forward with changes in our organizations. Dionne will be joining us over the next couple of weeks, but she's just one of the expert mentors that you will have access to as we go forward. Here are some of the people that we have that are going to be working with you. And this is a rogues gallery of experts. I love working with these people because each one of them has one or two very, very strong expertise that will help us in the process, so that as we go through this over the next couple of weeks, you will understand much more deeply than if you just took this session or went to a keynote. For example, up in the right-hand corner, you see Shannon Gregg, who we talked about cloud adoptions a few minutes ago. We have her working with us on the web meetings. Specifically, she'll be talking about process and she'll be talking about Zoom meetings, which she is one of the experts on Zoom meetings. But her true expertise as a PhD is in how to adopt CRM, customer relationship management. And she's built a whole team around the concept of adopting CRM. And as I said, she's a PhD and then content expert in that area. Justin Hewlett, who you see right in the middle, his expertise is as a project manager. He's a certified PMP with a lot of certifications in various projects. And as he goes through AI for us, he's not going to look at it as, I've got a new technology, but he's going to look at it as, I've got various opportunities within my organization. And if I am able to map these great new technologies to the right pieces at the right time for the right reasons, then how do I get that done optimally? And then from there, he'll be able to drill down into some of the more practical aspects of being able to implement various types of AI technology, including what we talk about now, Gen AI, but to be able to go forward in another level to you. And there's a whole bunch of other people here. I mentioned Dionne before. Chris and Chris on the left side, they'll be working with us on marketing. We believe that small biz tech is very different than working with organizations. So we brought in a specialist, Ann Gussif, in order to do that with us. And Ian Gotts and Pam Kamath, I can't say enough about them. I'm going to quote Ian in a little while. Pam works with governance and ethics and boards of directors and executive leadership only on issues like how do you deal with artificial intelligence. So the types of details that we're going to be able to go into are great. Now, I'm also in this here. I'm going to be talking to you about the desktop techniques. and about some of the products. I've been doing that for a lot of years, working with organizations like Apple and Verizon and Motorola on the large end. Got a lot of stockbrokers I've worked with. But the key here is I sort of pulled this thing together and pulled together these mentors for us in order to be able to get something accomplished. And in our paths, as we have gone through the last bunch of years, we've been very, very focused on how to be able to reclaim time. This is what our claim to fame is confirmed. How to be able to reclaim time and be able to refocus it more effectively. In our viewpoint, it's not just about being more efficient. It's about being more effective. And it's not just about reclaiming the time. It's what you do with the time that reclaims that makes the big difference. So we're going to come at it from that standpoint. And all of our mentors are going to be working with you in one way or another around that kind of capability. So let's talk, for instance, and I'll continue to talk about AI as the poster child here, because AI is the one that everyone's trying to wrap their arms around. We all think we know Google Chrome, but we don't. We all think we have the right stuff already and can take great advantage of our Excel or our Word or our Google Docs. But the reality is most of us aren't taking advantage of what we can. And I'll show you the math that will make it very, very, there may be a surprise or two for you. But take a look at this set of reasons that the Washington Post said AI won't be taking your job soon. This wasn't long ago, it's 3 months ago. And think about those for a little bit. And yeah, I guess creativity can't be taught, but we have also recognized that things we thought impossible, the prototype of that is, breaking the 4-minute mile, and now looking into the brain and doing other things. We thought things weren't possible before that really are possible. So I think a lot of these will get broken down. But look at that last one for a minute. That is entry level may become a thing of the past. And that one, I think, is probably the one that becomes most close to truth, because it's one of the things that we can potentially do a better job of taking these concepts and applying what we're talking about to entry-level types of positions. But that being said, you're still likely to want to know artificial intelligence at more than just a cursory level. The new reality is that AI really won't take your job. That's very unlikely, at least not in the foreseeable future. Well, in the foreseeable future, not in the near future, not in the next decade, let's say. Okay. And, there's still some guesswork and some timing issues related to that, but it's probably not going to be something you have to worry about taking your job for most people in the next couple of years. What you will have to worry about is that next person who comes along who understands how to put AI to use in what you're doing. And they will, if you don't know it at a very deep level, either make you look less than optimal or maybe even take your job at that point. And this is becoming common wisdom right now. I think we're seeing more and more of this type of concept. So you really do have to dig deep into AI and make it part of what you do. There are so many people here who think that data science is going to be growing as an occupation, and it's going to be the big growth in the industry, and that people are going to be able to move over to those types of data scientist types of positions. And he said, I look at it differently. He said, there are going to be some increase in data science types of positions, and those are going to be important. But I see it as every one of us are going to be data scientists at some level. And many of you have already become that in the past 5 or 6 years. And that will only get bigger. Ian Gotts, who we are going to rely on a little bit here, he's just a phenomenon, understands AI. He's one of the pushers and the thought leaders in the industry, said, the future is here already. We're not waiting for AI to appear. It's just that it hasn't gotten to everybody yet. It's not evenly distributed. He goes on to further say, now is the time for action. So let's take these types of things and roll them up a little bit and talk about using tools more generally than just AI. Again, I put it here and I throw it out as a very big symbol because it's an important part of what the movement and changes are going to look like and the adoption is going to look like over the next couple years. Not waiting, but now. So let's talk about the importance of getting your people to use the right tools. Start there. Well, first of all, the easy one, because the right tools create success. You want to hammer a nail, use a hammer, don't use a screwdriver. It's real easy. You want to be successful getting that hammer in the nail in the wood and have pieces of wood get together, then use the right tools, create some success. The other thing that we're finding it does, and I think AI's got a real good potential for this, but so do the tools that we've been using already, remove the activities that cause us pain. Remove the activities that we don't like to do. I was being quizzed not long ago by somebody who says, this need that we have is going to take a lot of spreadsheet stuff. We need to build business plans. Are you comfortable with that? And my response was, sure, I'm really good with Excel, but it's one of the parts of my job that I hate the most. So you think about it, I don't think I'm the outlier there. I think that we all have things that we just don't like to do. And the question is, how can we apply AI to do that? For instance, we are now in a Zoom meeting. I am going to turn on the AI companion. If you don't mind, I am going to start it. And it's telling me it's on now. And I probably should have put that on at the very beginning because the AI companion in the Zoom meeting would actually be listening to what I'm saying and listening to what everybody else is saying and being able to take that and go forward with it and then be able to catch us up. There's a box that I'm throwing in front of the screen here that I can see that's part of Zoom that says, welcome to AI Companion. Catch me up. Was my name mentioned? And what are the action items? These are the types of things that Zoom is built in to what they're doing with AI in order to be able to do some specialty things that relates to the types of things that you do with meetings. And we're going to talk about a lot of those different things as we go. The other thing that we want to do is talk about the productivity that creates, because success and productivity are related, but individually, it could mean that I want to spend my time with my family. It could mean that I've got other things that I need to do that I'd like to be able to spend my time doing. But more likely, it's I want to be successful and I want to be able to do these things. So let's do the math. Okay, I told you before that I was going to bring Google Chrome up because this is the math that I think is absurdly logical, but that we don't think about. So most of you probably have Google Chrome. 60% of you in this room, I'm pretty sure do, because that's about the stat of the number of people that use it. And if you're using Google Chrome, chances are you're using it 600 plus minutes a day because that's the average that people are using it. Can you imagine people are using it more than that? That's just the average. That equates to about 6 hours daily. Now let's do the math. If I can give you 10% effectiveness or 10% efficiency, I'm going to use them both here because this is important. Based upon what you're doing right now with Chrome, every day you're going to reclaim 60 minutes to do something else with. So if I'm making it faster for you to do something so that you're getting that 10% back, that's great. Or if I'm making you more successful more quickly, you're still going to reclaim that 10%. The numbers are astounding because that's 200 hours annually based on a typical 200 days of work that most people do out of 365 in a given year. And that comes out to 5 full weeks of extra time. What could you do with 5 full weeks of extra time? And I'm betting you that I can get you, as part of the series, I'm betting we can have you reclaim 10% of your time that you use with Google Chrome, just by being part of the Chrome part of the series. Isn't 2 hours worth 5 full weeks of extra time? And even if we can only get you half of that with a handful of tips, then you're still talking about 2.5 weeks. That's more than you get vacation. That's do the math. It's about 10,000% return on investment. It's amazing. So why is it so difficult to adopt the tools? And we're going to look at this, by the way, from a couple aspects, from the top, from the leader aspect, and also from the user aspect or the individual aspect. So first of all, it's not always, the tools are not always an individual fit. I have a client, for instance, who has 2 different sales teams, and the 2 different sales teams can't use the same CRM system, they believe, because they have 2 different sets of needs. Now, what it will take in order to make it fit will either to give them 2 different CRM systems because of the differences, or give them optimizations for each of the different processes that they need to put in. Either one of those are reasonable alternatives, but you've got to recognize that it's not universal within an organization necessarily. So that's something you need to be able to plan out as you go. Poor implementation is often an issue related to adopting the tools. Here, I just mentioned CRM, but I'm going to mention it again because it is one of those ubiquitous tools. There, I see a very, very low adoption rate. Salespeople simply do not want to use CRM. Now, it could be because they think it's taking time away from them, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it could also be that the implementation is poor. And I've seen many implementations of CRM systems and others, but CRM is one of the worst typically, in which the leaders who put together the plan implement it so that it will help the leaders, but it will not help the salespeople as much, or maybe not at all, or maybe be more detrimental to them. So the salespeople just stonewall them. They don't use it. And I would bet you that 60% of the people in this room probably already deal with that. So implementation is an important issue. People hate change. We'll talk about that in a minute, but this is something that I probably don't have to tell you. If I have to tell you this, then you don't have a keen grasp of the obvious like the rest of us. So I expect you know that already. And then finally, things we need to keep in mind are things like lack of optimal onboarding. It's one thing to say, go do it. It's another thing to be able to show them how to do it. And then finally, there's this whole concept of, is it the right tool altogether? We talked about the hammer. You're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy. Well, Maslow has another law that's called the law of availability, which simply says, if all you have is a screw, everything looks like you finish it. Okay. Anyway, so let's talk about change aversion. Most people hate change out of fear. Now, fear is a broadly used phrase as I'm using it right now, in that it's simply something that makes them nervous about having to use it. It could be the true fear, biting your nails fear, where they get the shakes and all that other stuff. Or it could just be something about it that they say, you know, something's going to go wrong. I don't want to use it, or it's going to cause me something. But let's just say that most of it comes back to fear. Part of it is the point of view or the differing mission. I just mentioned the implementation of CRM a moment or two ago. The reality is, if you're a leader, think about a salesperson's position. Unlike when you give other people a tool, the salesperson's probably on commission or partial commission. And when you give that person a tool, how they use it or have to use it will affect what their income is. And their spouse and their family will feel any changes. So that if they're not entirely confident that it's going to, from day one, empower them to make their incomes higher, they will avoid using it at all costs. Sometimes there's this whole concept of poor implementation being lack of trust. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're implementing this particular tool wrong. It could be that the last tool that you implemented made them go haywire because something went awry with it. So therefore, they do not trust that you're going to do it better this time. And that's a challenge. Even if they trust you as a leader, that is a challenge that they may say, you know what, last one didn't go too well. I think I've got to stay away from this one as long as I can. Communications is a key part of it. As you communicate, keeping a plan and making sure people are in the loop is a really, really key part to be able to help them implement. And then finally, this whole issue of leadership issues, That is, you know what? If they don't trust you as a leader, then you've got some other types of issues that probably have nothing to do with this particular implementation or this particular technology, but that there's still things that you need to fix. And, having worked in the Dale Carnegie world for a decade, I can tell you that I've seen a lot of those issues, and that when people turn their attention to the soft skills on top of it for leadership skills or communication skills or those types of things, you will find that there are big wins. So when you combine them, you usually find huge, huge opportunities. And this last one's probably going to be a little bit of an aha moment for you. Remember when I was in the education technology world, we were selling to schools. I found that there were a class of teachers that simply didn't want to use the systems no matter what. My daughter's in that world right now, and she sees it as well. And stage of career is it. It's not age, it's stage of career. If somebody only has 2 years left before they retire, they are less likely to want to upset the apple cart with changes than somebody who's got their whole career ahead of them, and learning a tool will help them for the next, what's a career these days? 40 years, 50 years, 60 years? However long it's going to be in the future. But you get the idea. So you're going to get aversion to change more likely as people are starting to exit their roles or their position. They think they're going to be getting, and it's not only end a career, but it could be they're waiting for the next chapter, either in another company, which is probably a different issue to deal with, or it could be that they're looking at another chapter in terms of they just got a promotion. And they think that in their next position, the tool or the changes that they make won't do them as much good. So it's not as worthwhile to them. But that one's really usually an eye-opener for some people because it's not really apparent. You really have to look deep in order to see that. And it affects everybody. It affects virtually every organization that's got more than 2 people or 1 person, I should say. Okay. Think about that. Even if you're an entrepreneur, think about that with partners that you may have had. Those things probably had something to do. Okay. So how do we overcome the objections to change from a leadership level? First start, and this is going to refer back in many ways to what Dionne said a little bit earlier. Outline the goals. Figure out what it is you really want to accomplish is the first step in order to make it happen. And then to determine the impacts of what you might do, both positive and negative, in order to figure out what the direction is that you should be going in. From those, you're going to want to create a plan. And I call it here an R1 plan. By the way, Dionne, I put that R1 in specifically because of you. Thank you. Because she's right. This needs to be iterative. It's not about creating a plan. It's about creating the first plan because it's going to change. Not only is it going to change, but it's going to change before you implement if you do it right, while you're implementing, and maybe over time, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Communicate with your stakeholders. This is one of the keys to success versus failure. So often I see where the person who is saying, the IT person who's going to the people on in their stakeholders and saying, hey, you know what, guys, you need to do this. And don't tell them why, or don't give them any additional information. It goes top down. It goes from IT, learning and development. They're probably the best at that. But we have to make sure that we communicate. And by the way, that communication should be 2-way. And then, as Dionne said earlier, iterate, do it before, do it during. Now, overcoming change aversion, and I'm going to refer to this in a moment or so. If you're an individual, first thing to do is to listen. Listen intently. Listen for reason and try to understand. Listen to understand. Why is it that they want me to do it? Once you understand what they are trying to do, then you should sit a little bit and think about what's the desired impact and what's the likely impact. Do they differ? And do I need to be able to communicate that back to them? And I'd say if you see any differences between desired and likely impact, I would say, yeah. And desired means your desire and their desire. I would caution you to communicate without criticizing because that's an important thing. Again, that's drummed into my head often because of the Dale Carnegie. And this is just a really, really important point. When you bring it to somebody, it's not because there's a problem, it's because you want to be able to help and get it moving forward in the right direction. Then when this is all put together, you say to yourself, I want to determine my own personal adoption strategy. Think about this a second here. If you don't have a strategy to adopt it yourself, how are you going to know whether you've done it well or not? So put together a strategy. And I'll give you an example strategy. In my time, when I get a new product, very often the first thing I will do is just look around. Sometimes I'll look at the help files, even those that I don't want to. If they've got 10 or 12 videos, I'll make sure that I watch the videos, even if I don't think I'm going to use them. And then this is something that I found to be very useful for me, especially when you have the drop-down menus on Mac or on Windows. I will go through either once a day or once a week, depending on how quickly I need to know it. I will go through one of the menus each day or each week in order to be able to learn that menu. Where is it? Where are things? What do they do? How do they work? I may only take 5 minutes a day, or I may take 15 minutes a day, but I make sure that I understand how that all works. And the key here is be patient. Now, this is where this on the right side comes from. Many of you probably are already familiar with the idea of a break-even point. This is time on the x-axis and value on the right axis. This area on the left that is yellow shaded says, I've spent more time doing this than I'm getting value out of it. But getting the value is a steeper curve, so that when you reach some inflection point, you will have gotten break even on the value. So remember, before I was talking about the math on the Google Chrome, that math is a real quick math. We just did a $100,000 project for a client that got payback in 30 days because the curve was so steep. What's on the right is where you start working really, really well and you're seeing the benefit. So just this morning, I was talking to some people who were looking at implementing some technology that I was recommending. And the way it was implemented, they brought it into the lowest level of managers. So the high-on people wanted to be able to put it in, and they said, okay, we're going to go in, but instead of showing everybody how to do it at once, we're going to go through this plan. They had, I thought, a pretty decent implementation plan. But there were a couple managers at the low level who said, no, my people will never do it. We don't want to do it because it takes us more time right now than the time that I'm doing in my current technology. So what they're doing is they're looking at this area right here for their analysis, which is how much time does it take me now versus how much time will it take me the new way? They're not looking out here. So when you find people like that, it's a problem. They need to have some patience and be willing to take a little bit of hit on their current productivity, because if you have a good plan, that will not last long. And this blue point will move to the left. So there's very short time period. But that's important for them to be able to be patient. And for as you communicate to them, let them recognize that that is important. And as they are there, they need to recognize that, hey, look, it may cost me a little bit of time, which is, by the way, one of the reasons that the stage of career is such an important issue, because they don't want to wait when they're late in their career on the way out. But in the beginning of the career, they're more likely to do that. And hopefully your organization has put together a good help process. So let's take a couple minutes now and talk about becoming a confirmed ALLStar. That is what we're calling the series, because the goal is for you to become an ALLStar in things that you use often. And as they change with artificial intelligence and other changes, for you to become so absurdly adept that you are the ALLStar. And I've outlined here so that this is what we're doing today, talking about the basic concepts of adopting tech. The series is a series of workshops, keynotes, and individual sessions that we'll have with you, which are on these basic topics here. So there are 3 tracks related to ubiquitous products, what you do with web meetings, which, by the way, that's going to concentrate on general web meetings and on 2 technologies, Microsoft Teams and Zoom. If you're in an organization, you probably need both. If you're in a small organization or an individual, you'll at least need Zoom, and you'll probably occasionally be exposed to Teams. In later iterations, we might do other products, but those are the two that seem to be the most ubiquitous to us. We'll talk about Microsoft Outlook, and for the majority of you, we'll be dealing with certain keys to email. And for others, we'll deal with not only that, but we'll deal with contacts in calendar. And I'm using those as key functions of the product right now. But in reality, we're going to be talking about productivity. All of these sessions are going to be oriented towards not how do I ABCD, but they're going to be oriented towards let's figure out how to be most productive with the tools that I've got or with the tools that I'm going to have. And then the third one is Google Chrome. I already told you the case for doing that. With that one, it's just 2 workshops, a couple hours. Artificial intelligence is handled as an entire track, and there are going to be healthy doses in each. And then we have a demo jam, which will be included, that you'll be able to see a lot of these products, the new things in action. Now, you'll be able to sign up at a level that matches what you want. So for instance, we've got the essentials levels, which is basically keynotes and core workshops, where you will be proficient to the level that almost anybody will need in the upcoming time period. If you need extra help, or if you think you've got some strategy needs that you want to be able to do, then you should sign up at the achiever level, which not only gives you the keynotes and the core workshops, but it also gives you some supplemental workshops and then the ability to do a small number of personal mentoring sessions. You'll be able to, by the way, sign up for all of those types of topics, or you'll be able to sign up for individual. So the number of personal mentoring sessions depends on whether you sign up for a season pass for all of them, or whether you just sign up for one topic or a couple topics. And then finally, if you want to be the go-to person in your organization, or if you believe that the specific type of technology that we're talking about, you need to be more deeply oriented than most and be your organization's all-star, then you should be signing up at the all-star level. You'll get the keynotes, you'll get the core workshops, you'll also get supplemental workshops, and you'll get multiple mentoring sessions. So you could, for instance, have one session with one of those mentors about a particular strategy. You can have different sessions about different topics. So we have marketing and sales and small business and project management, and you can pick and choose those, and we can put together a little way for you to be able to move from it's a performance path where you can build on top of those. And also you'll get a couple bonuses, that is badges that you can use to show on LinkedIn that you're highly proficient as an all-star in that. We will build another workshop in that we're just going to offer to you guys, which will just be a fun workshop about how to be able to get more out of your iPhone. I'm amazed by all these things that I discover that I'd love to be able to share with you, for instance. And then also, if you're at the all-star level, you'll get a cool all-star t-shirt. So this is the way it works. And when you're ready to sign up, which we hope most of you will, you'll do a couple things. You'll pick your type of pass. That is, do I want a season pass or do I want specific topics or tracks? You'll pick the level of those 3 that you want, and you'll be able to combine them in such a way. And then afterwards, once you're signed up, we'll send you an assessment document. So especially if you're at the all-star level, so that we can get a better feel of who needs to be put at your disposal and how we do it for you. And I've got a couple QR codes in case you're mobile right now. The top one that you see that starts exploreconfirmedapp.com. You can also go to just confirmedapp.com and click on unlock your skills, and you'll find this. That one will go to the explanation of what this is all about. And the one on the bottom is for team registration. We envision you're being able to say, look, I've got a team of 10 people. We need to have 2 all-stars, 2 people that we can have internal go-to people. A couple of the people need a little bit of extra help here, there, or the next. And the majority of them might need the essentials level. So we'll be able to package up ticket packages for you so that you can get in there at the right level. And the idea here is by combining the workshops with the keynotes, with the mentoring sessions for you, you're going to get the best of both worlds. That is cost effectiveness with a deep dive understanding of the topics that you need at the level that you want.